This is the
Five Starr
Podcast.
Let me talk to you. Hi. What do you guys want to talk about? This is such good shit. Thanks, guys. Back to you.
All right. Back for another round of these. I say these in the plural tense. Guess it'd be more accurate to say this. I could say these wrestling reviews, but, well, I think you get the point. We are off to a wonderful start. Nah, I'm just kind of bummed. I read an article on Saturday and saw that Richard Simmons died. I was like, oh man, that really sucks. I liked Richard Simmons. We had a big collection of his workout tapes when I was growing up. He was a really nice man. A little unorthodox, but I mean, you could tell that's the kind of guy that genuinely cared about people, and he really wanted to help them get in good shape. And I saw that article and I was like, man, there aren't too many people in this world like him left. I'm sure he saw the state of most of the American population and said, now's probably a good time to hang up the boots. Probably brokenhearted, walking around and realizing how fat people are and not giving a crap about their diet or their bodies. We have heartedly joke about it, but God, you look at the state of most people. It really is kind of sad. It's just the kind of culture we live in these days. People do not prioritize health. So, yeah, that wasn't a fun thing to read about. Not to try and immediately ruin the Monday show, because we got plenty to talk about. And by that, I mean 2 relatively poor episodes of wrestling. With Retro Raw, that's kind of a given at this point. We expect the shows to be bad. Now it's just a matter of where it falls on the scale. Retro NXT, on the other hand. Now, we'll get into that. I think that gave Raw a run for its money in terms of all-time horribleness. Raw was just boring and uninteresting this week. NXT was... God, I don't even know what the heck happened there. That was just the writers phoning it in and not caring. Now, before we dive into that horror show, make sure y'all comment and subscribe if you have not already. We are on YouTube and Rumble Mondays and Fridays here. Next weekend is the WWF In Your House pay-per-view. So we'll be covering that, in addition to the follow-up Raw. We do have a little bit of downtime before SummerSlam, thankfully. I know SummerSlam 95 ranks among the all-time worst SummerSlam pay-per-views, so I'm trying to mentally prepare for that one ahead of time. We'll see about WWE SummerSlam. I'm very much interested to see what they put together for a full card. The question is, will we actually see the Wyatt Six wrestle? One can hope not. So with that, Retro Raw, we did at least confirm one thing with Raw this week. Shawn Michaels may be an unbearable prick, but at least he pays his taxes. Every April 15th. Like a good law-abiding citizen. I bet you'll never guess who Shawn wrestled this week on TV. So this was technically the go-home episode before In Your House. And I actually forget what city it's from. I think it's Nashville. Off the top of my head, without reverting to Wikipedia to look up the full card, I know 2 matches that I can immediately rattle off. I know Diesel and Psycho Sid are wrestling in a lumberjack match for the WWF title. And I know Jeff Jarrett is wrestling Shawn Michaels for the Intercontinental belt. And to tell you the truth, the only reason I know about Jarrett and HBK, it's because I read Jarrett's Wikipedia the other week and realized that that's his final appearance for the WWF until December. And I remember reading that he ended up dropping the belt to Shawn at the pay-per-view. You would never know that based on watching Raw. That feud has been completely shuffled under the rug. I might actually do a quick card preview before we wrap up the review here, just to see what I'm getting myself into next weekend. Because I seriously have no idea what any of the other matches are. I always skip over those Todd Pettingill card plugs because I can't stand listening to that numbskull for more than 5 seconds. But Jesus Christ. There has to be more to this card than just the 2 matches I mentioned. So as normal, these people do a rotten job executing their go-home shows. Virtually none of these matches had anything to do with the pay-per-view hype. They sent out Owen Hart and Yokozuna at the beginning to work a boring squash with Jim Dimitri. And for the record, not making this name up, Gus Kantarakis. Gus Kantarakis. Sounds like a rare form of skin cancer. He's got the Kantarakis disease. I think Cornette actually took a shot at them both and went, Dimitri and Kantarakis? Sounds like a law firm. I mean, at least the job guys bothered to dress like an actual tag team. They had matching gear of some description. Holy fuck, were these guys horrible. That one guy working with Owen at the beginning, he was laughably bad. Owen went to try to give the guy a shoulder block. I don't think I've ever seen anybody stand completely erect and then tumble over like a falling tree to take a shoulder block bump. But this guy was the exception to the rule. He looked like he had no idea what he was doing. I mean, luckily Owen and Yoko killed him before it had a chance to get demonstrably bad. Yoko dropped a leg over the one guy, then Owen submitted him with a sharpshooter. And well, that was it. That was the entire segment. I believe I heard the announcers mention Owen and Yoko's opponents for the pay-per-view one time during this segment. And I'll have to double-check my sources in a minute, but pretty sure it's the Allied Powers. No, it would have been nice to, I don't know, maybe see them interact a little bit so we actually had a reason to give a flying fuck. But that's just me. The old school petty wrestling fan talking. Then we had Jean-Pierre Lafitte versus David Thornburg. Again, what in the hell any of this had to do with the pay-per-view, your guess is as good as mine. I don't even remember the last thing Lafitte did on Raw. Most of these mid-card acts show up and disappear so quickly you forget about them the minute they're gone. This particular segment was another chapter in the never-ending feud between Jerry Lawler and Helen Hart. The feud that never actually has any kind of payoff. It's just Lawler poking fun at Helen for being old and decrepit. He said he was going to set her up for a free cleaning appointment with Isaac Yankem. But the appointment shouldn't take long, because she's mostly gums to begin with. You know, because she's old. Pee. So anyway, Pierre won with the senton splash. I may or may have not zoned out for the majority of it. And on the subject of gimmicks that came and went, how's about another completely unmemorable gimmick repackage that went absolutely nowhere? Remember right before Fatu became the Sultan? He had a brief run in 95 as a make-a-difference street prophet, preaching about the power of positivity. Kind of like the New Day, except less rainbows and unicorns farting out bubblegum. Yeah, that was the thing that happened for about 6 months. And it's ironic, too, because this was actually a gimmick that could have gone somewhere if they bothered to give it a purpose. Maybe actually stick with it for more than 5 seconds. I mean, like the whole idea of Fatu walking around the streets of San Francisco and talking about his rough upbringing, how to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and make something of yourself when you come from nothing. And that's the kind of shit young kids need to hear today. Telling kids to stay away from drugs and avoid hanging out with the wrong groups of people. I know. The irony of WWF telling us that drugs and substances are bad. The jokes write themselves. Especially in 1995. But, again, could have actually worked if they'd given it any kind of direction. Or, you know, they could just drop it and repackage him as a masked mute the following year. That works too. The hell is this article that just popped up? Potential Trump assassination in Butler, PA. The hell? What is this? Possible shots fired at Trump rally. Trump rushed away by Secret Service. Oh. Doesn't look good. Wow, that just happened. This is breaking news as I'm recording this here. Oh, wow. Well, that guaranteed him about 125 million more votes. Just keep digging the hole, Democrats. You're going to get what's coming to you this November. Fucking retards. I'm going to have to read more about that. Looks like he's okay. Man, his ear's all bloody and everything. What the hell happened? This is in Butler. Holy cow. Hey, you know, man, I had dreams about it. I was like, it's only a matter of time before they try. And here we are, July 13th. This is going to be all over the news for the next 4 months. And his poll numbers are just going to keep going up and up and up. If you're going to fight me about it, Come at me, bro. So anyway, where do we leave off here? I don't even remember. This show's gone to hell in a handbasket. Oh yeah, the Double J stuff. Well, they re-aired his music video for about the 40th time in the last 3 weeks. If you weren't sick of it the first go-around, get to see it again. Then we had Shawn Michaels versus IRS, which was the featured bout for this week's show. Well, first off, let me get the nitpick out of the way. Going back to our theme of the program this week, the ineffective Go Home Build Raw edition. How any of this helped to drum up heat for the Jared Michaels IC title match, I don't know. With that said, it's a perfectly fine little TV match. Mike Rotunda is a really good pro wrestler. Shawn is Shawn. We know what he's capable of in the ring. Technically, there's nothing wrong with the match. I mean, the fans are into it because they're really into Shawn by this point in 95. It's just another case of a match happening here on Raw where Shawn goes over clean with a super kick, takes a minute to celebrate and pose, then he leaves, and that's it. There's no angle or promo afterwards. Nothing to actually indicate that Shawn's even wrestling for a belt on Sunday beyond the passing mention on commentary where Vince and Jerry just presume everybody already knows what's going on. I mean, at this point, I don't even know how well in advance they knew that Road Dogg and Jarrett were even leaving. I mean, figuring Shawn was already getting the title match, they may have already had plans to switch the belt anyway. That's honestly the only thing I got out of the match. Good wrestling, but I don't really see how Shawn beating IRS clean is helping to advance the title match for In Your House. The only thing it really continues to affirm is that the $1 Million Corporation is the worst fucking heel faction in the history of pro wrestling. Because they always lose, and every single member of the team is a geek. So following that, we had more Isaac Yankem footage, where he's abusing children in the dental office. This time we see him forcibly removing a molar, allegedly. They blurred it out on camera, so we didn't actually see what he pulled. Could have been the kid's tongue for all we know. But that's always reassuring to see on a Monday Night Raw. Mayor Glenn Jacobs abusing 9-year-old children. That'll get over with the network. Oh yeah, and Lawler stating that Yankem was going to fist Bret Hart when they meet in the ring. I believe he meant in the context of Yankem using his fist to punch out all of Bret's teeth. The only thing we actually heard Lawler say here was that Bret was going to be fisted. So you can use your imagination there. And then we had the final segment, the main event, if you dare to even call it that. Actually, hold on a sec. I think I missed something. God, I'm so out of sorts right now. That story article is just going to keep me up at night. Yeah, I think I scrolled down too far. There was a comma squash in there that I didn't even bother noting anything about. Nobody cared. Yeah, that's why I missed it in my notes. It was one singular bullet point. Comma squash. That's it. That's all I wrote down. 2 words. Comma, squash. And it was very much that. Then we had the actual final segment. And if you needed any more confirmation on just how much of a snooze fest this go-home show was, Holy fucking shit, this go home segment. This was all kinds of horrifically terrible. One of the corniest, lamest segments I've ever seen. No cap. This may have been the most boring fucking segment in the history of any wrestling show. And shock of all shocks, guess who they had on the stick for the majority of it? The walking vacuum of charisma himself, Diesel, who was in full-fledged idol mode for this fucking fiasco. So Vince brings out Diesel for an interview, which meant that Lawler was the solo commentator for this thing. So apparently he just figured he had free reign to talk over these guys and being an annoying douchebag the entire time. Diesel's trying to cut his promo at the beginning. Lawler's just talking over him about God knows what. And to make it even better, when Nash wraps up, Lawler just deadpan goes, "What'd he say?" I'm like, fuck off, dude. So he and Vince are in there just freestyling for a while. It's the most dull, lame attempt at dad comedy you've ever heard. Diesel sounding like he's trying to single-handedly lull everybody into a coma the longer it goes. I'm literally on the brink of falling asleep. Finally, he gets to the punchline. He says that Psycho Sid may have friends to back him up at In Your House. The lumberjacks, if you will. So then Diesel brings out his group of friends, which consisted of the following names, according to Lawler: Bam Bam Bigelow, the Smoking Guns, Sparkplug Bob Holly, the 1-2-3 Kid, Adam Bomb, the Garbage Man, and Shawn Michaels. There were also other men involved here, but they were such geeks they didn't even get a name plug. So, kind of like last week, they all surround the ring. Vince is trying to do the dramatic build-up. So what happens if Psycho Sid tries to take a powder and flee during your match, Diesel? What's going to happen? At which point, Diesel grabs the mic. He walks over to the apron, pretending to be Sid. He then leans over and asks Bam Bam, what's going to happen Sunday if Sid tries to leave the ring? To which Bam Bam, not kidding you, responded by letting us all know that he was going to commit arson. He said, "I will set Sid on fire." Yes. He was going to commit a crime on live broadcast pay-per-view if Sid tried to get himself counted out of a championship match. Something tells me that wouldn't fly. So the poor attempts at cheesy comedy continue. The entire time I'm watching Vince hold the WWF strap on his shoulder while Diesel's talking and being a goof. I'm like, Vince is already pre-planning for the Attitude Era like 3 years out. You can tell how badly he wanted to hold on to that world strap. He was just so prideful with that thing on his shoulder. So Lawler's telling the production truck to go to break. Probably because the segment is dying a rancid death in front of our eyes. And then Vince finally calls Sid down to the ring. At which point, they waste about another 4 minutes of remaining airtime by having Sid and Diesel tease the long face-off. And then the heels just walk away. And all the babyface lumberjacks are left to stand there with their boy toys in hand. So the payoff to all this is a lame stare down between two guys headlining the pay-per-view for the belt. Yep. That sounds like a WWF segment. Good God, that was horrible. That last 10 minutes, dude. That may have legitimately been the worst go-home angle I've ever seen for a pay-per-view. It was certainly one of the most ineffective go-home shows I've ever seen. But that final segment with Diesel and Vince out there popping terrible jokes at each other, the crowd is completely deflated by the end of it. I have no idea what they were thinking when they put that thing together, but God, it was dismal. And in fact, it was probably the only segment on the show that even remotely involved hyping an actual pay-per-view match. Because at least we got to see the challengers face off. We know that is a match that is happening. So now I have to humor my curiosity and see what is actually happening on this pay-per-view beyond the WWF and IC title matches. I still had no idea what the official card was by the time this show ended. So let's see here. I am going to Wikipedia and I'm going to scroll down to the results section. I know it's going to read me spoilers, but seriously, who gives a fuck by this point? I mean, we already know Shawn beats Jer for the IC title. Diesel retains against Sid. That's pretty common knowledge. So here's the official In Your House card. Not even going to bother acknowledging the dark match, because one of the names involved is Aldo Montoya. We have the Roadie going over the 1-2-3 Kid. We have Men on a Mission beating Razor Ramon and Savio Vega for whatever reason. Where in the hell did that match come from? Bam Bam beats Henry O'Godwin. I think I recall Vince plugging that match one time during the show. Shawn Michaels over Jeff Jarrett for the IC title. Already covered that. Owen and Yoko beat the Allied Powers for the WWF tag titles. So that is confirmed from earlier. Diesel beats Sid in the Lumberjack match. Bret Hart beats Jean-Pierre Lafitte. Again, what? Where? When? How? Why? No fucking clue. And the actual main event for In Your House 2, a program that has been so well built up on television, the program that everybody's tuned into, The Undertaker versus Kama casket match. Oh, but of course. Of course, there's a casket match between Undertaker and Kama. Why not? Why the fuck not? So yeah, that card sounds like dog shit. Am I going to watch it? Probably. Am I going to do a full in-depth pay-per-view analysis? Probably not. I mean, I'll probably go into more detail with the IC and WWF title matches. Maybe I'll spend a few minutes covering the casket match, even though it's a completely random match to wrap up a feud that everybody's forgotten about. I mean, I've completely given up on caring about the Undertaker-Kama storyline. That shit's been going on since Mania, and it's never been remotely interesting. The rest of this thing? I mean, what is there to even say about it? Half these matches would barely pass for top-of-the-hour Raw main events. They actually expected people to pay for these fucking things. The Road Dogg versus the 1-2-3 Kid. Bret Hart versus Jean-Pierre Lafitte. Mom versus Razor and Savio. Seriously, what the hell? I mean, I already said I don't have very fond memories of these WWF In Your House events. I think I'm starting to see why. These cards suck. So on that lovely note, we're going to go from suck to soft. I now just realized how horrible of a transition that was. I apologize, people. I mean, the SAWFT version of soft. Not... Well, you know. My brain is fried. I also don't really want to talk about this show because, God, it sucked. So Enzo and Cass are back as a team now. Enzo had been sitting on the show for the better part of the last year with a broken leg. It's funny, too, because I remember he was all over the show at one point doing these really hokey skits with Cass. Sitting in his wheelchair. And then he just vanished. Like, he was just gone. And now they're back. Allegedly as baby faces. Which made me even more confused when I realized they were wrestling the vaudevillains this week. Who I'm pretty sure were supposed to be heels. Despite the fans loving the gimmick. And William Regal. This is a quote from Regal as they were coming down the entryway. I'm honestly as giddy as a kipper. For the record, I have no idea what that's supposed to mean. But I'm not going to question the soundness of William Regal. He might put me in a stretch hold. So you basically had a babyface team versus the equivalent of what you'd call a modern-day tweener team. Even though I hate that term. Enzo's out there in his baggy leopard print tights. The only wrestler alive that ever pulled off that look. And they wrestle here for approximately 2 minutes. And then we get the classic WWE finish where Cass and Enzo are totally in control. And then the Legionnaires music plays. They saunter out to the stage like two sloths on crutches. And apparently that's enough of a distraction for Cass to take his eye off the ball entirely so Simon Gotch can roll him up and pin him. Gotta love dumb distraction finishes. So indeed, Enzo and Cass lose their first match back as a team in over a year due to the Heels theme music playing. So those two are immediate dweeps for life. Made even better by the fact that nothing happened afterwards. They stared each other down from across the room. There was some mild back and forth verbal jousting. That was pretty much it. That was everything to the segment. Got to admit, so far I'm really not digging this revitalized tag division. It's one thing to have more teams on the roster. It's another thing to have a bunch of mediocre teams who are complete morons. Enzo and Cass, for example. Maybe it'll improve. Who knows? So coming back from break, with a straight face, Tom Phillips uttered the following words. We're now going to take a look at the demise of the beautiful, fierce females. The demise of the beautiful, fierce females. I have completely lost all hope for humanity. The idea that anybody could put those words together in a sentence and not immediately get punched in the face. Only in WWE. So after they aired that riveting video package, we pitch back to the ring for CJ Parker versus Xavier Woods. And I'm now determined. CJ Parker is such a loser in this company. Even the heel commentator William Regal thinks he's a piece of shit. That is a sad, sad state of affairs for the Planet activist. So I think I made it clear during their confrontation the other week. I had absolutely no idea why these guys were mad at each other or what they were beefing over. I remember Woods ended up looking like an idiot by the end of the segment. First, Parker tried to apologize, and then Woods basically told him to go pound sand. And then he turned his back on Parker, thinking he wasn't going to get blindsided. Clearly, Woods did not think this plan through. So, aside from having a very boring wrestling match that nobody cared about, I had to spend the entire time getting lectured by Byron Saxton about the importance of recycling. That was like one step below Clockwork Orange. Then they totally fucked up the finish here. Parker was supposed to roll up Woods while he was using the ropes to cheat, but they were both out of position, so Parker couldn't actually reach the ropes. So they awkwardly fumbled around for a sec while Parker was on top of Woods in a reverse unicycle position. And then the ref just counted 3. And it was so quiet in the room afterwards, you could audibly hear mice pissing in the rafters at the Full Sail Arena. Yeah, this feud kind of blows. Not gonna lie. The CJ Parker character is absolute death. He had to have been in the running for worst gimmick in 2014. God, the amount of times they tried to recycle this gimmick over and over again with this guy. It's amazing when you realize how badly the whole thing flopped. Then we had Sami Zayn doing a promo with Devin. He, basically just told us that he's going to embarrass Tyson Kidd later on. He said, we've seen the real version of Tyson in the last couple months. The conceited side of him. Now their business is personal. It is no longer professional. I mean, up to this point, it was the best segment on the entire show. Not that the bar was set all that high to begin with. And then the hits just keep coming, dude. Oh, Christ, this fucking match. I'm just now rereading my notes for this thing. A lot of bold print and curse words here. I might have to censor myself a little bit. The match is Alexa Bliss versus Sasha Banks. And before I even make mention of the wrestling here, air quotes around that wrestling part, I have to read you a direct series of quotes from Alexa Bliss's inset promo. I am not shitting you. This was taken almost word for word. Sasha, last time we were in the ring, you felt the sting from my bling. You underestimated me because I'm so small and nice. And tonight, you'll say lightning strike twice. Sting from my bling. She really said that. That was not edited off the program. They meant for her to actually say that out loud. A writer took a pen, wrote that dialogue down on paper, handed it to this woman, and said, "You go say that." Christ almighty. The fuck am I doing with my life? This was the point where I came to the conclusion that internet marks are the dumbest collective waste of human plasma on the planet. Those same people that tried to convince everybody that NXT was the shit around this point. I hope you know never to take those basement dwellers seriously, because they were dead ass wrong. Fuck, this show sucks. So this match, after they did all their choreographed gymnastics and tumbling routines, they had what I would traditionally sum up as a very poorly rehearsed scripted routine of spots. It was one of those matches where you can tell they pre-planned almost everything in advance, move for move. There was no attempt at pacing or letting anything soak in. There was no story. It was just move, 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 spot, 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 finish. And the worst thing this company ever did was let Alexa Bliss wrestle. I had actually forgotten that she started in NXT as a wrestler before they made her a manager for the interchangeable Blake and Murphy team. And it's crazy too, because she's always been a relatively decent promo and personality. She's got charisma. Whenever she's actually given good scripted material to talk about, she's fine. But watching her wrestle, dude, it's like watching trainees in their first week of wrestling school. Nothing she does looks natural. It also doesn't help that she's like 5 feet tall and weighs 90 pounds. Come on, nobody's ever going to take that shit seriously. It's a bad match. It's rushed all to hell. It was sloppy. Sasha won with a bank statement. And that was just me summarizing some of the other stuff I wrote down here, which I'm not even going to bother. I mean, with YouTube these days and all the stuff they censor, it's not worth me getting shadow banned for using too many curse words or speaking ill of the opposite gender. Because Lord knows we can't have that. Can't ever say the God's honest fucking truth. So then Tyler Breeze had a pre-tape promo. This also sucked all kinds of hideous cock. I do love how they format Breeze's scripted dialogue here. The whole idea is that he's supposed to be looking at his reflection in the iPhone. Because, you know, he's gorgeous. Yet it's so obvious at the same time he's clearly reading his lines. He's probably got that notepad icon open. Periodically, you just see him referring back to his phone and reading his next line. Then he looks away for a few seconds and then pans back to the phone again. It's just so wacky. Anyway, Devin wants to know when he's going to wrestle Adrian Neville. Breeze tells her that the Versace mansion wasn't built in a day. Yes, the Versace mansion. A Miami homestead. Could have said Rome. But Breeze wanted to be timely. He informed us that his agent is currently drumming up a contract to make sure everything is in order before he signs off on a title match. He's also still recovering from his tragic modeling accident, making sure to show us his pointer finger. Because, you know, it's comedy. Yep. That was a thing that happened on the show this week. Devin's expression actually painted the picture perfectly. She just stood there and looked blank. That was, that was pretty much what I looked like while I was watching this minute-long fiasco. Blank and disinterested. Speaking of blank and disinterested, the same thing held true when she was interviewing Tyson Kidd in the following segment, with another round of generic lame questions. How are you preparing for your match with Sami Zayn later on? It is remarkable to think that we had basically an entire generation of female ring announcers in this company, all of whom were totally interchangeable, all of whom were told to be lifeless generic robots. They were hot. They were really good to look at. Yet they all collectively had the personality of rotting corpses. Vince just decided one day, let's have 15 versions of Sable. That'll get over like a fart in church. And they just cycled through one after the other for years and years. So anyway, Tyson said stuff. I don't even remember what he talked about. Something about how what happened to Natty last week in the main event was an accident. But when Tyson beats Sami later on, it won't be an accident. And once again, Devin just stood there poker-faced and nodded her head along. Mean Gene Okerlund she was not. And then, for reasons that I cannot explain, they decided to dig up the Exotic Express. Because if there's one thing NXT desperately needed at this point in the show, it was Adam Rose and his group of dancing clowns. The show was sinking deeper and deeper into the abyss. And they said, we know how to fix it. Let's get the Rosebuds on TV. This whole thing was just so WWE in 2014, it's not even funny. So you may remember, a little bit of backstory here, way back in the time machine, approximately 1 month ago, Jason Jordan was a clean-shaven, passionate, white meat babyface, teaming up with his good pal Ty Dillinger. And remember, I was like, hey, you know, these guys could have been a pretty solid mid-card tag team. Well, now, for reasons that were never explained, Jason Jordan comes out to wrestle Adam Rose this week. He's basically a heel now, for no reason. They set up in the inset promo that Dillinger was injured, and that the last time he was seen, he was allegedly hanging out with the Rosebuds. So by proxy of elimination, he assumes that Rose is responsible for potentially killing and or hurting Ty Dillinger, I guess. It was poorly explained. So they have a match. Adam Rose did a poor man's impression of Adrian Street by stroking Jordan's chest and acting all weird. Regal was visibly uncomfortable calling any of the action at the risk of getting fired. And eventually Rose made a big comeback, did about 50 moves in a row, And he eventually hit Jordan with a party foul DDT and pinned him. Jordan actually took a hell of a bump for that. I will credit him there. And I don't believe we ever got a conclusion as for the whereabouts of Dillinger's dead body. He may still be tied up in a meat locker somewhere getting molested by the Exotic Express. We'll never know. I can confidently say, though, I do not think the Jason Jordan-Ty Dillinger tag team is long for this world. Call it a hunch. So at this point, 45 minutes into the show, I had long since mentally checked out. This is easily one of the worst NXT episodes I've ever seen. So I had a hard time getting into this Sami Zayn-Tyson Kidd main event. I mean, the wrestling was good, but God. Did you not pay attention to the previous 45 minutes of content? How in the fuck would anybody care by this point in the show after watching that garbage? Seriously. You can give me Rock and Austin in the main event. But when you proceed that with 15 Kai and Tai skits, I don't care who's booked in the main event. I'm not going to give a shit. That's like serving someone an uncooked meat burger and then expecting to make up for it by giving them a slice of cheesecake for dessert. So like I said, it's a good little match. Kind of like a lot of NXT main events where it's very competitive and very back and forth. They give it time to breathe. The crowd's into it. Sammy's great at working the underdog babyface role, so Tyson could get some heat on him. They do a lot of big high spots toward the end to ramp up the energy. Tyson ended up trapping Zayn in the sharpshooter, which they milked until Zayn grabbed the ropes for a break. And about a minute later, Kidd goes up for a big dive, but Zayn traps him in the Koji clutch and forces an immediate tap out. So Sammy gets the big W, which they sold big on commentary. No post-match angles or beatdowns. I mean, I guess the story they'll play up next time is that because Natty wasn't at ringside to cheerlead Tyson, he'll use that as the excuse to blame her for the loss. Presumably. That's all there is to really say about it, though. Again, the theme with NXT right now is that it's the Tyson Kidd, Sami Zayn, Adrian Neville show. Those are the three guys carrying the whole product on their back right now. Everything else is just so meaningless, dude. And that's probably the best word I can use to describe it. It's certainly the most accurate. Meaningless. I just watch everything outside the main event, and I keep asking, like, what is the point of half this stuff? The tag division's a mess. The Divas division has turned the channel bad. The underneath feuds are so dull you couldn't cut through them with a butter knife. That's not even taking into account all the bad pre-tapes and promos. That's a whole different issue, dude. These scripted dialogues, oh God. It's painful to watch. And I'm at least trying to provide some contextual input to make the reviews worthwhile. If I really wanted to blaze through the report, I could have just skipped through everything up to the main event. And we really wouldn't have been missing anything important. But that's where we're at. It's a major lull period with NXT in the summer of 2014. The next takeover isn't until September, so you could tell they're trying to fill a lot of dead air time between now and then. God, is that apparent. So, yeah, chalk that one up to an epic failure of an episode. Downright abysmal. But we'll keep chugging along in the timeline. Because that's what we got to do to get to the good stuff. Whenever that comes. So, thanks everybody for checking out the show here. Next time we come in on Friday and reconvene, we'll be going back to just the classic territory footage. And then, like I said, next week we'll have the In Your House pay-per-view plus Retro Raw and Retro NXT. So, we'll at least have another segment to fill the gap. But thanks everybody for watching, and I'll catch you all soon. Peace out.